You are listening to Aim Higher, a Catholic podcast designed to instruct and to encourage the daily practice of our faith.
Pax et bonum, peace and good to you all. This is Aim Higher. I am Sister Catherine here along with Father Anthony. And today we're going to kind of do something a little different. So here we are in the month of September, and Father will be celebrating 4 years of the priesthood. And so we thought it might be an interesting time to do an interview about his journey to that point. And even though 4 years is not super monumental, I decided that it was worth doing because it's kind of a continuation on our religious vocations talk, just a little bit of a different spin. And of course, we might not be around next year. It could happen. So, and I say 4 years, feels like it's been longer than 4 years, and yet it hasn't. And I guess we'll soon find out how Father feels about it. But before I start firing off some questions, and these are questions that Father had not been tuned into, so I think it'll be kind of fun. But before I forget any questions, do you have anything you would like to say, Father?
Well, I'll just say one thing. It's a proof how the older you get, the years will go together. And you're right. I think about it, says, yeah, it's been 4 years, mm-hmm. But it's like, has it been that long? Mm-hmm. I have been a priest longer than I've been in seminary.
Wow.
Well, I did the fast track, so
I
did it, and I did all the courses in 3.5 years.
Excellent. Yep. That was always pretty exciting. So, I guess if you're ready, my first couple of questions.
You don't get phone calls forever, and now they decide to call me. All right, what's up? What was that question?
Anyway, all right. So the very first question I have, but I'm actually gonna put 2 questions in at once. So because it's, why did you become a priest, and was there anyone who might have inspired you to become a priest?
Why did I become a priest? Well, one, I would say, first thing, most important thing, is that it was God's will. I'm happy to say that it was instilled in us at a young age to seek God's will. Now, whether it was in the classroom or at home, not that we fully understood what that meant in all of its facets, and even now I don't profess to say that I know it, perfectly. But you knew that there were 3 paths you could take in life. You could get married, you could stay single, or you could become a priest. Now, for a man, become a priest. And so it was always an option for me. And I kind of had an attraction to it even when I was when I was young, when I was really young, 7, 8, or 9. I really was considering it. I was 14 or 15 when I went to the minor seminary, and I was again, the thought came to my mind.
I'm trying to think what year you went to minor seminary, so I was just trying to do the
2000.
math. Oh, okay. So 15, 16.
Yeah. So I was really, the thought came in. Mm-hmm.
Were you nervous to go to minor seminary? Because, did you have any idea what to expect, or were you just...
Well, I did. I was there a year before for a visit over the summer, so I did know what to expect. In some ways, other ways I didn't know, like how the studies were going to be. So I'd say I wasn't probably the greatest student either in that. But eventually I was sent home because it wasn't the time. And timing is important. when God calls you to a vocation. It's not about when you want it to be, it's when God wants it to be, which was a lesson that I learned from my experiences. And probably if you want to go to a person who inspired me, I can say all the fathers that I've been around inspired me in one way or the other. But if there is one individual inspired my priesthood, and it was probably Saint John Marie Vianney, because I remember reading his life, everything he went through, not being the sharpest tool in the shed, and showing that intelligence is not the most important quality of a priest, maybe not even the top 5. Holiness, obedience, piety, patience, humility being the top one. He had that, and he had perseverance. He did what he needed to do, and then just reading on his life, what he and how he changed the town around and ours around, and how he combated the devil, and just his demeanor. I really was inspired by it, and also reading the lives of Saint Isaac Jogues and Saint John de Barbeau, the North American martyrs.
Oh, okay.
And that made me, you want to become like a missionary. So there was a bit of that adventure. But when you actually go into the life, then it becomes a bit more real, and then you see that there's so much more than just what you read on the written page.
Wasn't there, because you talked about the missionaries were really struck you very strongly.
Mm-hmm.
Was it the cartoon that was done in the 80s? Was it the cartoon about St. Francis Xavier that really, or was it St. Francis of Assisi?
The cartoon of St. Francis Xavier, I didn't see until I was like 16, 17 years old. That does have
I just feel like you brought that up not that long ago.
I really did like that, and it did inspire. I watch it now. I said, "Wow, this was kind of hokey," but when I was a kid,
right? I found them on YouTube. I actually showed the St. Francis of Assisi to a family here, and the children were engaged well enough. The mom really liked it. She wants to watch the other ones. So, and if anyone listening wants me, email me and I'll send you a link to the videos if you want. They're cheesy, but
but what else are they going to be?
Right.
It's like 25 minutes,
right?
And how much you got to cram in there,
right?
And they basically did, the whole origin story of Saint Francis of Assisi, and they had to explain it in that amount of time. But it is a testament to how important having these things around you, how they inspire you, and they play such a major role. If I didn't have those things around me, would a thought really have come to my mind? If I didn't have the various customs and the things that we practiced at home, I don't know if I would have thought of it.
So I know they say hindsight is 20/20. Can you now look back to see how things we might have done at home really helped you prepare for religious life and even really seminary? I know we weren't super big on customs per se. I think for us, and we talked about it, our biggest influence had to be the music, because our dad still is a choir director. So we were involved one way or another. And I think that also kind of, I think, did lay some foundation for us to just have some involvement, I guess. So do you think any of that kind of helped shape?
Well, I'm sure. Yeah. Some consciously, some things unconsciously. I do remember the music playing such a big part. Our older brother, James, was a big influence to me when it came to music, but also came to just practicing the faith. And, he himself knew that he wasn't perfect, but he still saw the duty of being the older brother to being an example in practicing. And I remember when back in 99, when I went out to go visit Rochester for the first time. I've only heard stories of Rochester. I didn't even know what the place looked like. And I just remember one of the things that James said to me was, he says, you'll love the place. You'll love it. He says, it's really nice and quiet. And, if you need to go to confession, you don't have to wait till Sunday. You can ask.
Yeah.
So those were things that made an impression. Where it was kind of a theoretical thought when I was a younger boy, idealistic in some ways, because you're comparing yourself to the lives of great saints who did these amazing things. But probably when I went out for that visit, and I was there for about 2 months or so, a little longer maybe, but
It didn't seem long enough to me, but that was also because the three of you were gone for the summer, so it was just me and mom and dad, and that I did really like that, as a 17-year-old. So
I'm sure you did, but I did. It did have an impact. I won't forget the first waking up, looking out that window, and not the room you're in now, but looking out the window into the seeing the chapel, and it's still dark, and you see the light on, and you come in and you hear them chanting office. That had just a profound effect upon me, and it's those things that really inspire you, even if they might not inspire you to be like Saint Matthew. And our Lord called, he dropped everything and went right then and there. But it's something that stays with you. So when the time comes, you have something to contemplate on, something that attracts you to the life. And, the chanting was certainly a major part of it. And as you all know, I love singing, and I love the church music, love the Gregorian chant. And that was a huge part of it.
And I'm sure now as a priest,
it was helpful.
The singing too, there's definitely a lot of joy in that as a priest.
Well, and it was, like I said, it was helpful that I had the background, because, learning Latin can be difficult, but if you already have a bit of a background in the pronunciation of Latin, it's a very excuse me, that's very helpful from the get-go. Yes. It's like one less hurdle to climb, or to jump over, I should say. And I really appreciated it, and it did help to inspire wanting to take on that life. Well, just of course, if anything, you don't really know what you're getting into until you go. So that's why one of the reasons you go out to visit.
Yes, and that's something that we've talked about a few times. If you're thinking you might have a vocation, you do need to explore it. There's just no like green light aha moment.
Well,
it's just people want definitives when you talk to them sometimes, and it's like or absolutes.
It's like, do you think I have a vocation? It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. It's like, I think you have the makings of a vocation. You certainly have the qualities, but no one really knows until you actually put yourself into that life. I've said on this show before, we put a person in a religious life for 2 weeks, said they had to live this. They could say, hey, yeah, I could do it. Just 2 weeks? Yeah, I could do it. They don't have to worry about anything else. All they got to do is just adjust. Some can do it. Then you say to them, now you have to do this indefinitely for the rest of your life. That's a different thing
Mm-hmm.
when it becomes that life commitment. But that also makes it more worthwhile because you're
Mm-hmm.
giving yourself to God. And that's what it all comes down to. And that's why you don't want young people to rush into it being too idealistic. You want them to be practical. You have to make sure their eyes are gazing towards heaven, but you still have to keep their feet on the ground.
Yes.
And I was very fortunate to have an anchor system with me, with the family. I've talked to the first person I would talk to whenever it would be Dad.
Mm-hmm.
James came in. There were times that I talked to you
Mm-hmm.
early on, because sometimes it's a decision that it's hard to make because you have to give something up. And it's been my experience and some of the others that I've spoken with that it seems that God will give you what you think you want. He'll give you, the a job you really like, opportunities you like, the car that you like. And I ended up getting it was one step below my dream car,
Mm-hmm.
but it was very close. And I loved it. I loved the car. Loved it a lot. And great job, great roommate. Um, I had opportunities in theater, directing, and teaching, which I was really excited to do. Um, which actually that did make me laugh because I was teaching that winter before at the Wauwatosa Rec Department Theater, and I was planning to come back, because it was only it was like a Saturday for
Mm-hmm.
like 9 weeks every Saturday. So I enjoyed it. The
Mm-hmm.
kids were great. And I remember I already made my decision to go out to the seminary. And I was like in my last week of work. So I remember sitting up in the break room and I turned my phone on. That's a novel idea for some people. No, I didn't leave my phone on with me all the time. I only turned it on during break to check my messages. I did not have my phone on all the time. But and I was thinking, I got to give Diane, that was the name of the woman who was head of the department, I got to give her a call, let her know that I am not going to come back. And as I was thinking about that, my phone rings and it was her. I was like, wow. I said, I was literally just thinking about calling you. And she said, well, I'm calling to see if you can help us out in a bind. I said, okay, what is it? She says, we have our summer program with the children. We put on a show, um, and our director had to quit. We're wondering if you could step in and direct it for the next 2-3 weeks. And I just had to start laughing. He's like, well, so I said it's a great opportunity, but I can't do it. I technically could have done it
Mm-hmm.
because I wasn't set to leave for the seminary for about another month. So I technically could have done it, but it's not the type of thing you want to be doing before you go to the seminary. It's
Mm-hmm.
like you don't. It could be a very delicate situation. The
Mm-hmm.
seminary, yeah, yeah. You have the resolve. I'm going to go, um, you know, but you also have to be aware that could be something that could give you second thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that could have given me second thoughts because I loved teaching the children. I love theater.
Mm-hmm.
I had so many things that was happening. Says no. I mean, I also was set to um, star in a show. I star, but play the leading
Right.
role.
Well, and you also actually were pretty close to a promotion at work too before you had quit. Like you
Yeah,
actually could have.
yeah. I found that out like my last day.
Yeah.
My one of the machine operators came to me and like, boy, it's a shame you're leaving. I says, yeah, I know. I said, yeah, but he says, no, I mean it. It's a shame you're leaving because I'm going to this department. So my position's open. Ben is going to take that position and his job is open because he's second operator. And says, really, you were the only candidate. I'm like,
Because it
Now,
would
is
have
that
been
like,
more money and
it would,
everything.
yeah, it would have been about $2 an hour more. I would have had to start getting the insurance. I would have
Mhm.
had a guaranteed 48 hours a week.
Yeah.
There was a lot of things, and then they all started coming, and I'm
Yep.
just like,
But
nah,
I think that actually is the beauty of it all, that God really, how do I want to put this? When he really wants you, he wants to make sure that you're ready to give all of yourself to him. And it'd be easy to go and think you have a religious vocation when you're not finding the job you want, or you're not able to find or be in a
yeah,
relationship.
like
It's easier to say, well, maybe I have a religious vocation. Well,
I'm
just
not
be
succeeding in the world. Maybe I can
right.
succeed in the religious
Right.
life.
And neither going either which way, it's not a plan B option.
Yeah.
Especially religious life. Religious life should never be viewed as plan B.
As Bishop Lewis once said to me, um, that the being going to the religious life, it's not a place for um, socially impaired people. It's not a haven for socially impaired people. Um, and
Well,
it kind of thought that I was
yeah.
socially impaired, being like you are incapable of. I mean, I'll be frankly honest with people. I was really bombing it because I was showing my ignorance as a minor seminarian.
Mhm.
Um, in so many ways, Bishop Lewis was actually getting concerned. Like, is there something wrong with this kid? And actually find, no, I'm just a kid,
Yeah.
and maybe I just wasn't ready for this.
Oh, because I mean, as you know, I was horrifically shy growing up, and it really,
Mm-hmm.
really, really wasn't until I started working, and really, I think when I got to the grocery store is when I really started to kind of come out of that shell.
Mm-hmm.
School really wasn't all that great for me. Um, so I guess I was a late bloomer, but it had nothing to do with, how I was raised or where I went
Yeah.
to school. It was just my
No.
particular
So
demeanor.
yeah, I'm. It's not how he meant it. People who are shy, but it's just somebody who was just incapable of being able to really operate in the
Mm-hmm.
world. Um, when I saw him the next time, I told him I was a manager. He was kind of surprised. I was like, well,
I
it's
grew
like
up.
I grew up. I grew up.
Yep.
Um, the
That's
experience, my experiences there were invaluable.
right.
It really opened the door where I was not um, shell shocked, culture shocked by when I went, back as an adult. I was 26 when I went back to religious life, and I just I just remember there's always like you walk in the door, you've got various emotions, tugging at you. The excitement that, hey, I'm about to begin. I'm beginning this adventure. It's really what it is. But there's also I'm also ending another
Mm-hmm.
portion of my life, which um, I had many good memories, many experiences which formed who I am. I was, do I want to give this up? You can still go back. It's not too late. Um,
Oh, these were the thoughts you had
yeah,
early
yeah,
on in
oh yeah,
seminary.
yeah.
Yeah, because
Thoughts.
obviously those thoughts are not,
Yeah,
your
those
lifer.
thoughts go through your mind, and it's a temptation from the devil. It's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Is it? When I was minor seminary, Bishop Lewis, um, uh, he talked to me because after 3 days, I went to him and said I want to go home, and he said something to me I will never forget. He said, brother, you've only been here for 3 days. He called me brother because I was a third order member. He said, brother, you've only been here for 3 days. That's really not a lot of time. Don't you think God deserves a fair try? I'll tell you, instantaneously, the temptation went away. I was good. I
Yep.
was good.
That's awesome.
And you got older, during my 8-day retreat before novitiate, I was very nervous, a lot of thoughts going through my head. It didn't help me that my back went out.
Ooh.
It was like after my novitiate. No, it was after the novitiate began. My back went out. I was only there like 2 weeks, and my back went out. So I was like bedridden for a few days. But it's just, when I tell people, it's the vocation of every day. It's the grace of each day. And I just read an Imitation of Christ. I'm talking about that, it's like, what was it? Like the little short prayer it had, and I'm going to paraphrase. It's like, help me, O Lord. Help me, O Lord, in virtue and in your holy service. And then by thy grace, I may begin to serve thee, because up till now I've done nothing.
Right. I like that.
And I think about that. It's like, up till now I've done nothing. I've heard that before, even from St. Francis of Assisi in his last testament. Up to this point, we have done nothing. And there's a part of me that's like, I mean, can I say that I've really done nothing?
Yeah.
I mean, is that like ignoring everything that I may have achieved spiritually or grown in? And it's like, but it's not what it means. It's that you have grown to the point spiritually, if you truly hold to this, believing that up till now I've done nothing. First off, it's not me. It's the grace of God that does the good. Without God, I cannot have one good thought, word, or desire. Nothing. So, and then I say to myself, okay, each day is a new opportunity. It's a new opportunity to either persevere in God's grace or to fail and fall back into sin. Yesterday, you may have fallen into sin. Reconcile with God by either act of contrition or going to confession. Well, that's gone. That day is gone. Tomorrow's not here yet. You have today. So don't try to build off of, they say, oh, I've been good for the last 5 weeks. No, today, because it can happen in a moment. You can change. You can fall into a temptation. So just worry about the day. If you just worry about, I will say, I'm not saying don't have a 5-year plan or don't think about the future, but spiritually speaking, just focus on today. Just focus on pleasing God and what he expects of you for today. That's why St. Benedict says, ora et labora, prayer and work. If those things is the focus in our life, then each day actually will become not just bearable, but a joy. And that's what I found in religious life, especially when I began my seminary years at Lubbock. That was a new experience. It was more tight.
Yes.
I was the only one there with Father Joseph, and I was by myself a lot.
Yeah, well, this is a great that you mentioned it, because this actually was going to be my next question.
Okay.
Let's talk a little bit about the life in the seminary. So I guess continue on, Father.
Well, I guess the prelude of all that was my experiences leading up to it, and what those who inspired me,
Yes.
Family, friends, saints, and also, like we said, the love of the liturgy. Not always appreciating it the way I should.
Right.
Kind of drifting away, but I always saw my way back, because God still spoke to my conscience if I was wrong. So I knew right from wrong, and I knew that I'd ask the question, does this please God, what I'm doing?
It's actually funny what you're talking about right here, because I just started up one of my catechism classes for the year, and it's getting a young lady ready for confirmation, and we're going over the 7 gifts, and the first gift we went over is wisdom. And actually, I was breaking down that exact point, that wisdom helps us to see that the earthly things are empty, but also how God loves us, and that everything we do, we should think about how God would want us to do that. Would he be pleased with how we did in a happy situation, a sad situation?
The love of earthly things isn't empty, but the love of God is the fullness and the completion of our existence. And when you come to that realization and you appreciate it, and realizing it's fluid, it's a mutable thought, because you can go one moment you love God and the service is great, even in struggle you love, but something can happen and it shifts. So in religious life, the focus is upon that reality that each day is a new adventure, and each day you want to grow closer and closer and closer to God, not further away but closer. Is a horrible thing for a religious to fall away from God. They might still be religious, wearing the habit, but their minds are full of pride, ambition. That's not what you want. You want to do your duty as if you're being a priest. It's taking care of the salvation of souls, or if you're a brother or a sister, might be assisting that, but also taking care of the property, whatever is needed of you in the missionary work. But it's just, you have to take the day and realizing that you offer it up to God. And if that's the beginning and the end of your day, how can it be better?
Right.
Now, of course, you could say this to certain people, they won't get it, but the cardinal man will not understand the spiritual, and even the person who's trying to be spiritual. I say that because we don't enter religious life or priestly life because we're saints.
No.
You enter to become a saint. As Bishop Lewis once said, we became priests for the salvation of other people's souls, but we became Franciscans for the salvation of our own. And it's very important. You have to have that spiritual grounding, in the meditations and prayer. And that was something, when I went to Lubbock, was enforced even more than my other experiences, because I had no other distractions. We had a lot of things to do in New York, and it was more than what the few of us could handle. But now, since study was my major component, is what I had to work on.
Was it difficult to kind of adjust to a routine, a disciplined life? Do you think there was anything in your own, when you were out in the world, so that kind of made it, could you kind of see yourself evolve to being more comfortable in a routine and a discipline? Or
I kind of took to it right away. Of course, as you know, there was a bit of an emotional time when I left, especially with our brother being in the hospital.
Yes.
So I had a lot of emotion. But Father Joseph was so smart. He gave me my books right away. He didn't usually, he says, you would give a young man time to acclimate.
Yeah.
And he didn't see the need for that. He says, no, you need to get started. Yeah. That's going to help you get your mind off of these things. And well, he gave me my schedule right away. This is what you follow. This is when you go to, say, office. This is when you study. This is when you go out to work. This is when you go out for your walk. Yes, you're taking a walk every day because you're fat. You're going to go. And this is when dinner is. So you have to do that. And then a few days later, Father Joseph was gone because he had to go to Mexico. So I was only there with him for about 3 days. And then he was gone for like 10. So then I'm there by myself. So it was very fortunate for us, the fact that we visited Father Joseph twice before. So we knew people down there in Lubbock, and I was familiar. That really was to my benefit. And that time, because I'm expected to do this, I can't, just maybe do a few of the things and just lay around and watch television, sneak in, do this and do that. That's not what I'm called to do. I have to, I now have to be responsible for my own schedule. And I got to answer in good conscience, hey, Father, I did what you asked to the best of my ability. Not to look him in the eye and say, oh, no, I was, horsing around. So in a way, it's like how a person approaches a job when they just start. Now it's a job that you have to do without any supervision, knowing that God is watching you and following him. But I had the schedule. But I'll tell you, when I went, I think it was like the second night I was there, we had Vespers and meditation. I was so overwhelmed with that. I started getting teary-eyed because it was such an experience. And that was really like the moment I really felt like, yeah, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm home. I mean, there was always like that thought, oh, is this what God really wants? And you always knew that your superior will let you know. And I always felt that was actually very comforting. Because the reason why you need such affirmation from a superior, one, they are put in charge of you by God. They're given a certain grace, a certain charisma to read that in a soul. And it's something that's so important. It's not like a natural thing like marriage. This is giving up certain things, like you're married, the right to marry, and because that's a very natural thing for people to do, raising children. You're giving that up. You're going to a higher calling, a higher plane, and much more is expected of you, spiritually speaking. So it requires a little bit more of an affirmation of whether this is the right decision. Because you have people, they might desire religious life, but it's not their vocation.
Yeah.
But even when they say that they desire it, how strong is that desire? Does it eventually fizzle out? Because that can very often happen. I've seen it happen with individuals. They're really excited on the start and the get-go, but then they start falling off from it. And you try to explain to them, like when you explain to young people about religious life, you try not to tell them so much, you discourage them. But then you'll just let them know, look, there's something that's going to be expected of you. You're going to be expected to wake up at certain times of the day, in the morning. If you had enough brothers, you'd be waking up every matins.
Yeah.
If you
maybe someday I'll get to experience that.
If you had you're going to be expected to study all morning, and then you have to. Then he says, "What's our break time?" There's no break time. There's no. There was maybe like a half hour of relaxation,
recreation.
But that Father Joseph, already recreation, but he already marked that one for me, maybe to go for a walk, which then I would just meditate on what I studied. But then I have to get back, do a chores for like an hour or so. Could be various different things. The longer I was there, the more chores I got, more responsibilities I got, and then I had to cook dinner. And cook dinner. You finish that. You clean everything up, and Father Joseph would help me with the dishes if he did not get a phone call. And near the end, he got a lot of phone calls to the point I said, Father, I think you're planning this.
I was just about to say.
I think you are purposely telling Brother Charles to call you at this time on these days so you don't have to do dishes. But that was not it, because he would always look at me and say, I am sorry. I said, that's okay, Father. That is all right. I can get these dishes done.
But I think it does that little story gives insight that you have fun in the religious life too. There's a family.
There's humor.
It really is your family. There's humor. You definitely take everything in stride. I mean, we grew up in a family that is lovingly teasing, or our motto was criticizing is caring. So, and I know not everybody grows up that way, but
that's true.
You kind of do have to just
Well, it's not
Like,
taking yourself seriously.
right. You got to lighten
And
up a little bit.
yeah, everyone's different. You might have different people coming to the religious life who might be a little bit more reserved in how they act, and it's not a bad thing.
No, absolutely
But
not.
it's also like Bishop Lewis taught that, if you are a more outgoing person, when you go to religious life, you should focus more on being reserved and quiet. The person, though, who is naturally more reserved has to put themselves out there to be more interactive with people, and that can be hard. I think the second one is harder than the first.
It's funny you mention it because His Excellency Bishop Giles brings up a lot how he would be considered the very reserved one. So he would, he didn't really want to be the one socializing. If Bishop Lewis wanted to go on an errand, Bishop Lewis would ask him, "Brother, do you want to go with me?" And his answer would be, "No, I don't want to." But Bishop Lewis, in his wisdom, was like, "Well, you're the one that needs to go." And he shares how Father Joseph was definitely the more social one, would like to go places, and he was the one that was, left at home, then instructed to go up to the novitiate when people were visiting, because you kind of have to break both of those.
And that was also the thing in the seminary. I was allowed to get into conversations with parishioners at Corpus Christi. For most of the time, that was not a problem, because other than Sundays or a few hours in the morning, I didn't see people very often.
Right.
But it was hard because they would have a church dinner around Christmas.
Okay.
And I was allowed to get the food. Then I had to go into a room by myself.
Yep.
And hear all these people talk and having conversations. And there were a few times I got caught in a conversation with people, and Father Joseph was like, "What are you doing? Why are you talking to them?" And there's one time, actually, he and I both got kind of a conversation, and I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know why I thought I was kind of roped to it. Father didn't say anything to me, so I just kind of sat there. Then he goes to me, "Listen, why were you there? You weren't supposed to be there." I'm like, "But what?" I look back and say, "No, I don't even know what I was thinking, if I was thinking of anything." But it is good to have that separation. You need to have that separation. And it's as much for the people as it is for you.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people just flat out don't understand it. I definitely did not mind on Sundays when we'd have morning mass here. There would always be like donuts, coffee, and I'd spend the morning, help get set up, get things ready. Mass, and when mass is over, I went upstairs, and I definitely did not mind that at all.
I went into the thing is, it's a small building. The building. And this was before the construction of the new chapel down there, and the chapel, what is now the church hall, as they call it, used to be the chapel. And the room that I slept in was then kind of the gathering room. So I couldn't go to my bedroom because they were in that room.
So did you hang out in the kitchen?
No, it was the room that we would have supper in.
Okay.
So it was the one that was across the hall from the kitchen. Okay. And that's the room I would just sit there, hear and listen to everybody, and I'd just get out a book and I'd be reading until everyone left. Fortunately, I hung out too long. But, then I got to clean up after them.
Yeah, exactly. Which is, when you hear about an experience like that, I think people are like, well, that just sounds really cruel. Like, here you are working before and working after, and you don't get to sit with the people. But, and this is not to say that I do not, when I do visit with people and talk with them, that I don't enjoy it. And I do say, actually, it's more, there's a lot of purpose to it. But I also just do like the hanging back, because the reality is, I am by myself most of the time.
Yes. And that was
it. And that's really what it is. It's not an act of cruelty. I mean, it is to help you separate yourself from the world. Because eventually, as you know, you're going to go back into the world to some extent. Especially you as a priest. But I'm finding more and more as the years go by, I'm definitely a lot more involved. But it's just part of how it's done. It makes sense.
Well, as Franciscans, we're not meant to just be in solitude,
right?
cloistered. We're also
Right.
meant to be out in the world.
Right. If I was a
And
poor Claire, this would be a completely
yeah,
different
yeah. If
scenario.
you're a poor Claire, we wouldn't be doing this.
Right.
But I would be talking to you through a screen.
Yes.
But it's yeah. So yeah, that's the whole bunch of information. And that was just kind of, my time in Lubbock. It was fast paced. Bishop wanted me to get done as quickly as I could, but also make sure I learn.
Right.
So I was pushing myself. There was a bit of urgency, and
But you were getting good marks too. According to Father Joseph, whenever we would talk,
I finished. According to Father Joseph's grade system, I finished with a C+ average.
Interesting.
Any other grade system, I'd be like a B- average or a B+ average. I might have actually been a B-. And the thing is, it was a little rough in the beginning because I wouldn't go to school for like 10 years.
Right.
So it was like learning how to study again. And that was when I finally got that down, it was a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was certain things I took for granted and I paid for it.
Yes. So I guess to kind of keep this going,
All right.
So
Not my fault you have 100 questions.
It's not 100 questions. I made sure to keep this pretty simple. I just wrote down a few extra questions that I don't necessarily know. I don't even sure I like, so I probably won't even use, but I just want options. So, but
what's your favorite toothpaste?
How'd you know?
Tom's.
Oh, very nice.
Of Maine.
Spearmint or peppermint? Ah, okay.
Actually, I wouldn't mind peppermint. But what's up? What's the next one?
So, when did you give your very first sermon? Because was it when you were a deacon?
My very first sermon. It was. Let me see here. I can actually.
Oh, yeah.
We're actually very close to the. The anniversary of my first sermon.
Yes.
It's 2017.
Okay, because that's when you were made a deacon, right?
I was ordained a deacon in September 2000. Yep. It was, I believe I'm correct, September 9th, 2017. And Bishop Giles said, because I was practicing sermons, and he says, he says, I was thinking of letting you give the sermon, but that might be a little too cruel. I said, I'll give a sermon, Your Excellency. And it's the only sermon I've ever given at St. Joseph's Mission in Kentucky. I've not come back in a situation trying to give a sermon.
I mean, ever?
Yeah.
Father, we were in Kentucky for Ash Wednesday.
I didn't give a sermon.
Pretty sure you did give a sermon.
Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure because.
Well, maybe I did.
Because I remember it wasn't a long one, but the only reason I remember because we were discussing doing a hymn afterwards, and I think you said something, and you're confirming with Judy, she must have been nodding, saying, "Yes, we're going to sing this song."
Okay, well maybe
I
did.
Our listeners,
we had a lot going on.
But I'm pretty sure I know that you did because you mentioned the book Uniformity to God's Holy Will.
Okay, all right, then I guess I have. But my first sermon,
you did.
My first sermon was about describing the steps towards the priesthood, the different orders, the minor orders and the major orders.
Okay.
And
how'd it go? Not don't redo it because we don't have it. But
well, no, I don't remember. I don't. Oh, I think I did. I think I did okay.
Did anybody fall asleep?
No, as long as the bishop didn't fall asleep, I think I did all right. No, I think it went. I think it went fine.
Did he have any comments afterwards? I don't really think.
I think Father Joseph might have critiqued me because he was the one helping me.
Okay.
I don't remember what he said. I think it was it was good, but you're going to develop your style, and
Okay.
and how you preach, and I've noticed the style that I probably been influenced more than anyone else is Bishop Giles's style of preaching.
Mm-hmm.
Now he delivers, and so
Mm-hmm.
that's I've noticed my best sermons are like when I'm channeling the bishop.
Nice. I will admit it's been a while since I've listened to one of your sermons. I kind of got out of the habit of logging in to the stream.
Well, because
Part of the
you.
reason was the influx with COVID, and I
Mhm.
didn't want to take that away from people. Then also there was a while that if I would log in and listen and you do the announcements, that's usually when I would find out that mom or James was in the hospital. I'm
Yeah,
like, oh yeah.
yeah, I was not. Yeah, you don't need it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is how I find out. No.
Well,
Welcome,
yeah.
sister.
Well,
But
and basically anytime anybody would when I would find out in a formal situation, I was like, yeah, okay, that sounds about right. You
yeah.
know.
So, yeah,
Okay.
that was my first sermon. That I was ordained a deacon.
All right. So I guess moving on. How nervous were you on your ordination day?
Which one?
Oh, to the priesthood? Because I suppose what is it when you're made a deacon? That's also considered an ordination.
Actually,
In
every
the
minor
sub-deacon?
order is
Okay,
considered an ordination.
good to know. The more you
Yeah,
know.
the more you know, the more you grow. And I didn't really know that until until Bishop Giles came out. You know, I know this kind of goes back a little bit from your question, but it was 2015, January of 2015. Bishop Giles
Mm-hmm.
came and gave me tonsure,
Mm-hmm.
which is your entrance into the clerical state, and then the orders of um. Oh my word, Father, come on, don't do this, don't do this. No. I got this.
Okay, good. Because I won't. Yeah.
Lector, and
Is it Porter?
Porter. Oh
Okay.
my
Well,
word.
I wasn't sure either because I
Oh my
mean,
word. I just blanked.
it
I think it's
happens.
Porter then Lecter.
Okay. That
And
makes sense, actually.
yeah, Porter and Lecter. And then he came back about a year later for the other minor orders. I just remember when Father Joseph came to tell me, and it was in October or early November. Yeah, the bishop's coming out to give you orders. I'm like, what?
So
Because
soon.
I arrived in August of 2014.
Right.
So, but no, there were circumstances, my experiences already
Right.
that I've had,
Right.
because this was my second time going out even to the major seminary. My novitiate time and
Um.
preparation was in New York. This was now a seminary.
So when you took your first set of minor orders, um is it at that point that you're bound by the
No, that's when you become subdeacon.
okay, and but I want to clarify because I mean I
Oh,
didn't well because people
oh,
aren't going to know what my question is
okay. I'm
'cause I didn't
sorry.
finish it.
Sorry.
I'm grateful you knew what I was going to say because I was trying to think of what are the three evangelical councils,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, and that's poverty, chastity, and obedience. So
Okay.
so when you were made a subdeacon and all that time up to just before you were made a deacon, you could have still walked away.
Yes.
But once you made your diaconate,
No
then
subdiaconate. No, the four minor orders. It's not an actual ordination. Even the subdeacon is not an actual ordination, or it's not a sacrament. I should say.
okay.
They're
So
not
I mean, we
sacraments.
just established that it
They're
was an
not sacraments.
ordination.
That's what I meant. They're
Okay.
not sacraments. They
Cool.
actually take very much the character of a sacramental.
Okay.
The four minor orders being porter, lector, exorcist, and acolyte can be dissolved. Yeah,
Okay.
without any, as you would say, harm or foul. If a young man finds that no, this is not the calling for me, he can leave, and he doesn't commit a sin. He's not bound by any vows.
Okay.
But when you become a subdeacon, and reading this, there's a point where the bishop says, if you want to leave this life, you're still free to do so. But if you want now to dedicate yourself to God, take a step forward. In my mind, well, that was one large step for man and one giant leap for mankind.
Yeah.
And I wasn't nervous with that too much. I mean, mostly because the night before, Bishop Giles was talking to me, and I asked him how's sister doing, and he says, yeah, she asked, do you think I'm nervous? You asked, he thought I was nervous, and he says no, he shouldn't be nervous. He's made his decision already. It's like, yeah, you're right. I made my decision.
And
I was ready to do it.
Yeah.
And I was excited to do it.
That's kind of what's interesting is I think even for me, even to my investiture, I really wasn't nervous. It was just like,
no. So when I got to the ordination, so the subdiaconate was still, it was in Lubbock.
Okay,
So all my orders are in Lubbock, then subdiaconate.
Okay, see, I think that's where I was getting confused. I was thinking that you got the minor orders fell in line with being a subdeacon and then a deacon, but I remember now that those are all separate events. So that's why. Okay, so that's cleared up. So well, maybe this also was
so I became a subdeacon. Now it's like now I'm bound to this life.
Isn't it nice that it is perfectly clear that you've made this commitment? Some people might want to take, well, was the person ever really sure? The church gives you plenty of opportunities to make sure. Yes. And so, if you're considered religious life, but you feel like it's just, you're going to be, it's going to be decided right away and it's permanent. That we've talked about this before. That's not how it works. Rest assured, the church was very wise in laying this all out. So, even the prospect of celebrating Mass on your ordination day, was there any bit of nervousness?
Didn't really answer the question with the ordination day, but in itself, I'm trying to remember. And I wasn't particularly nervous. I was in charge of arrangements.
Yeah.
For my ordination, I had to get the holy cards made up. I had to get the invitation sent out. I had to do. I had help, but I had to make sure the flowers and work with people for arrangements. And we were very fortunate to be able to do the reception at the Americanism Hall here in Waubeka. It's part connected with the Flag Day Foundation, and they were really nice to let us use it. I was really excited. It was just everyone put in a lot of work to make this thing happen.
Yes. So
you had all these things, and bringing people together, going to the airport, picking up Brother Pascal. I had to pick up. Then I had to take Brother Pascal with me to pick up Bishop Madrigal, and you're getting back, and then going over the ceremonies.
Yes.
So that's what part that kind of made it nervous.
And didn't Father Joseph misplace one of his books too and found it like just at the very last?
I don't remember that.
Day? Okay.
I don't remember. I think maybe it sounds something familiar. I don't quite remember that.
There's always going to be a mishap, I think.
Because one thing Father Joseph was saying to me, I don't know if the bishop said it, but Father Joseph he said the day of my ordination, like the morning, we went over the ceremony. And the thing is, I'm there. Everything's being done to me. So the day of the ordination, I'm not doing much. The concelebration with the bishop. I was kind of nervous because he was like, great, now if I screw up, the bishop's going to be right there and you'll hear me. But you just follow his lead. Because the thing is, what people might not know is that when you become a deacon, it can usually be about at least a year, sometimes 6 months, but between that becoming a priest, being ordained, and you are practicing how to say Mass. So like every day, like Monday through Friday, I was celebrating Mass. I was going over how to say Mass as part of one of my courses. And by the time I had to actually celebrate, I knew what I was doing.
Right.
So serving Mass all those years and being a part of the liturgy in so many other ways growing up helped. Also following your missal, you'd be amazed how much of the rubrics contained in the altar missal is contained in a little missal at home
Yep.
that you use, in the pew. So all these things helped.
So, was there a lot of emotion the first time you held our Lord in your hands? I mean, I feel like that would be a repeat, like, awesomeness. I mean, that has to be like it's obviously a gift every day, right?
I'm trying to remember. I don't believe I did not touch the host
Okay.
during the concelebration.
Well,
I can't
right, but
remember.
I guess I
But
was
it was
skipping
my
to your
first
first mass,
solemn high mass. Um,
which was beautiful,
I'll
by the
begin my
way.
answer. Yeah, it was the only solemn high mass I've been present for. I've never witnessed one. I've been a part of one. I was nervous. I was extremely nervous. But the thing is, Bishop Madrigal, because we had nobody, he performed the office of deacon at my mass, which is quite humbling.
Mm-hmm.
You have a prince of the church serving as your deacon, and he
Mm-hmm.
said something to me that calmed me. Because I'm nervous. What do I do here? What do I do here? He says, "Father," or it was a brother. No, it would have been father at the time because I was already ordained. He said, "You are in charge. You tell us what to do."
It's very
And that was a relief, because it's like, I mean, I can ask, like, what do I do next? But I had the book, and if I had to take my time, you take your time. But you were just it was just like nerve wracking. You didn't want to screw up. So the first time that I consecrated, I don't remember very much what I thought, because I was still nervous. But I do recall a bit of being overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Because you
Sure.
have the reality, and I like to remind myself of that saying Mass. Sometimes, because you have so much to do, when you say Mass, your mind is not as focused as it should be, which is a shame. It's just an
Yeah.
absolute shame, and it should be. But times you just take a moment. You take an extra moment after you say the words of consecration, and you're holding our Lord in your hand. You just take a moment, and then it becomes surreal. You realize this is our Lord. This is a
Right.
promise He made to us, to be with us sacramentally in this way. And at the words that I spoke. And who am I? Who am I before God? Nobody. I'm nobody. But that He would humble Himself to such a degree. But it really was my first low mass, which was the following day.
Mm-hmm.
And I really got time to appreciate,
Sure.
and really, really savor, if you want,
Yes.
that.
That makes sense.
And Roberto was the only one from Mexico. Was the only one that was present for my
Oh, nice.
that mass.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just talking about the consecration and the words you say. What I really like about being here in Rochester is our chapel is really small, and I can hear most of the time those words. I mean, because it's in a very low tone, and I realize most people won't. But it when I tune in and I can actually hear it, it is
It's chilling.
It is because it's like this is happening. He's right there. So I just think that we all should just take into practice looking at our priests and think they get to hold Jesus, and how grateful we should be for all of you for that the gift that Jesus promised he's giving through you. So hopefully that'll
The
be
mediator.
something. Yes. So hopefully, well, and you're known the alter Christus, the level of respect that is owed to priests. And I think when we talk about familiarity, it can be kind of hard to sometimes keep that in perspective. Because what's interesting to me is that I know that we're siblings, But at the same time,
I know that too.
Yeah. Hey, great.
I wasn't foreign
I think
to
other
me.
people, do as well. But because I remember the question being posed, well, isn't it going to bother you to go to confession to your brother? I said, no. I mean, honestly, the things that I truly regret, I don't need to bring up to you again. Like you don't need to be aware of those things. That's already been done. And when it comes down to it, if I need to go to confession and you're the one that's needs to is gonna have to hear it, so be it. I don't think of it as, ooh, he's my brother.
Yeah, I got a little bit of that. Some people who knew me, they said they were kind of nervous, and it's like, it's not a big thing. I mean, the first confession, I heard,
Was dad's, right?
my dad's. Was dad's. And
But I guess it's just, we're brother sister, and I think there's still like that component, but you're still your father, Anthony. So.
Well, it was like the question was asked, like to mom or to dad, is it going to be weird calling your son father? And no, it wasn't. The guy used to call me brother. Now they can call me father,
Yeah.
and that's really not going to change. So I was like, anymore. So you got used to father. You can stick with that. But when I first saw dad after my ordination, he just looks at me, smile on his face, beaming, and he looks at me and says, "Father," and I just look at him and say, "Father." And because we're such theater nerds, I knew he'd get a kick out of it. It was the line from Fiddler on the Roof, if you know that show. The lead character promises daughter to marriage to a man in town. And he has only girls. He has like 5 girls, no sons. And he gives a line to the man saying, "I always wanted a son, but I just thought he'd be a little younger than myself." Which, of course, got a bit of a chuckle from the old man.
Of course.
And but I one of the fondest things about the day of my first mass was taking the pictures, and the one with the whole family.
Yeah.
That was a really nice picture.
I'm glad we were able to make that happen too, because it ended up being the last picture that all of us were going to be in.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. No.
And James had both legs.
Yeah, he had both legs at the time, and but we were all there, and it was.
Well, and Mom and Dad were recently brought into the Third Order, so they were in their habits.
Yeah, they recently professed on the. It was the 20th.
Their anniversary.
Their anniversary. They were professed in Third Order together, which is. I mean, it was because it made the week even more joyous because Father Joseph arrived on that Wednesday, I believe, and then he did benediction on Thursday, and then he invested them in the Third Order. So it was huge. There's a lot going on, and the people they did a fantastic job.
And people that came from other places too.
Oh, yeah.
To be a part of it was really neat to see. I just remember, I think it was the morning of your ordination, and there's more or less downtime in the basement, and I'm watching everybody scurry around. And in normal circumstances, I would have been a part of helping things get right.
Scurrying?
Yes. But, I had just arrived, and I really had no place or any business really trying to help out because everybody knew what they're supposed to do. So I was just standing there, and I was standing by Paul Bergman, and I just said, "I'm so happy I don't have to help out." It's like, his answer was, "Yep, just stand there and look holy." Of course, I'm like, all right, I already failed that condition, but
stand there and look holy. Oh man, way to put pressure on me.
It's like, what
am I gonna do?
I guess we'll do one more question to wrap this up. What are some of the joys of being a priest? That what some of your greatest joys for you as a priest?
That is a good question.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it's interesting that ever since you were ordained, that you have done a large number of funerals. Like,
Okay, you
this
asked me a
isn't part of the
question
greatest.
about joy,
I know.
and
I
you're
should have.
bringing up funerals.
Well, the reason why, because I wasn't going to ask you about sorrows. I just want, I realized that
Okay,
sounded completely
they go
ridiculous, I guess.
together. They go together, joys and sorrows. That's
Right,
a part of this valley of tears.
right. Well,
No,
I think because
yeah, I
it
have
was a
done a lot of
build up
funerals.
because,
I have done a lot of funerals.
yeah,
Um,
quite a few. I sometimes I can't even.
I have done. I think I've done about within the last 2 years. I've done about 13
Yeah, and
funerals, something around there.
it just seems unusual.
And one was Mom, one was James,
Mm-hmm.
and I that you want to say what was one of the sorrows? It's not so much sorrow. As a priest or religious, you like to think that you've separated yourself from certain emotions, but
Mm-hmm.
you don't. You don't become a stone,
No.
a cold person. Okay, you're just you just process things a little differently. And when Mom passed, I was prepared for it. I was able to give her last rites. It was and it was advice that I was given from Father Joseph years ago. He says, "Look, you're going to be in a situation where you're going to have to give last rites to people that you've known probably your entire life, if not most of it. You're going to have to keep your composure." And here I go. One of the first ones being my mother. So for me, it was I just focused on the job. I didn't
Well, and what the
stop
sacrament means,
what the
what that.
sacrament means. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's what it's what was important, not my getting emotional wasn't
Mm-hmm.
important, but being there for her, fulfilling my duties as the priest, because I am your priest first, I'm your son second,
Yeah.
and that's how it had to be.
Yep.
So, but then to give her funeral, I was okay up until the sermon. And at just a second, as giving the sermon, I have Steve and Carolyn sitting right in the front pew. I was fine. I went down and I looked at them for just a second, and I was about to break down crying.
Yeah. And just for clarification, Steve is our brother and
Yeah,
Carolyn
yeah,
is our
it is his
sister-in-law.
wife,
Yep.
and I just started to get emotional. Then I had to take a deep breath and go and
Yeah.
just move on.
Yep.
Um,
And yeah,
then
here we are. It's like, yeah, this is such a joyful topic,
and
isn't
then
it?
James,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna comment on James, but I'm gonna touch on that for a second. With James, I already cried, for him. It was a lot of extra stress added with the situation of his death, and I just I called a few people that morning that I know that you or Dad didn't call, and I called Father Joseph, told him, but when I got on the phone with Father Bernard, I broke down like a baby.
Yeah.
I said, Father, I don't know why I'm crying like this. I said, you're emotional, but I don't know why calling you made me just start crying. Mom, I didn't get emotional until a week later, and I listened to my sermon.
Yeah. And everything was done. Yep.
So if you want to talk about a joy wrapped up in all of that, it's also an honor in a way to be able to say the Requiem Mass.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's interesting with the Requiem Mass. The Kyrie is actually my favorite Kyrie. So
it doesn't feel like it belongs. It feels like it doesn't belong.
So beautiful.
It's
but
so melodic. But I was really happy to be able to say their masses, and
mm-hmm.
I had the offer like, Father, if you can't do it, Father Joseph was willing to come and do it. And I said, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm not going to not sit do their funeral.
Right.
But
I mean,
it's just the duty, and then just it just reminds you of why we are here and what we've been created for, and that to continue praying for these souls.
absolutely.
And in that you find joy, because if people have asked the question, how did you deal with it? How did you deal with your mom dying and your brother dying so shortly after? How? I said, my religion is what helps me. My faith is what helps me, because I accept God's will. If you say it was God's will, if you actually mean that, and as far as you're capable in the moment, you find so much consolation in it,
Yep.
because God knows what he's doing. And he gave these individuals, and many of them I've encountered, graces throughout their lives, and I knew them very well, that I feel good, confident that they are in a place either of bliss or purgation.
Right.
And it's not dogma. I don't know,
Right.
but
But
there's comfort in that, and it's a God's will.
absolutely. Absolutely.
But the joys,
Joy. Well, and as you said,
Mass,
they go hand in hand. So
saying the Mass is the biggest joy, is the greatest joy, which is why as a priest, you want to make sure you appreciate it, the honor to be able to say Mass. And when you
right.
say it every day, it can become commonplace. And it is your duty as a priest to make sure it doesn't become commonplace. And, I heard it being said by one priest, that to say the Mass, every Mass, with the same amount of devotion and love as your first Mass. And he said, no, it should be greater each time. That love should be more and more and more each time you say Mass. And also, added on top of the saying Mass, I love various points of liturgy. I love Holy Week. You know how much I love Holy Week.
Yes. But what about maybe I mean, I like to think there's some joys in the parish, the people.
Well, I was going to get there eventually.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Just check.
Well, you do have a joy in being able to be there for people, to console them if needed, to counsel them if needed. Very often you find the counsels that you give the people are, it's usually silence. People actually know the answers to certain questions. It's just they need someone to talk to work it out. And sometimes they want your guidance. You can find great joy from that, being able to administer baptism. I just did that 2 baptisms this last week to 2 children, 2 little babies, bringing them into the church. The joy in instructing people in the faith, and then actually seeing them get it and being excited about it too. Having the classes, traveling to different missions to assist, to help people. It's a joy. Did I really think I was ever going to do things like this in my life? Not really. I always knew. I always kind of had a somewhat of an idea of what the priest does, but now that I actually do it, and like this podcast,
Right. Well,
never thought this would happen.
Is that would that be one of the things that surprised you in your priestly life, is the podcast, or is there something probably even more? Well, probably there's probably other things.
So what do you mean surprised me?
Of something that you get to do, like you never really thought that would have been something you would have done.
Yeah, the podcast, hosting a radio show, or a guest hosting. And this sounds kind of weird, but I never really thought I'd be in a situation where I'd be on airplanes and then going, or in a car driving to a long distance, having to stay at hotels.
The whole. I bet that is weird. That
the first time I was by myself.
Yes,
was my first time I went down to Rock Falls. I stayed at a hotel. It was just weird.
I bet it was.
It was just a surreal experience.
I was thinking just recently that I've flown more as a religious than I ever did in the secular world. I think 3 times I think only 3 times I was on an airplane, and then of course with 2020 through 21, really I was like 4 trips that I took, and that was just.
Oh yeah.
So it was just, and I
Yeah.
never would have thought I'd be going on an airplane. I mean, when I first came here, I didn't even think I'd really leave the property. And I'd probably be
Yeah.
okay with that, but that's not my calling.
Well, there was times I had to leave. There was when I was down in Lubbock, and I remember it was one day, because you find as a religious, you have to break the monotony once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the holy day. It was All Saints Day, and Father Joseph did not have to travel. So he said, "You and I are going to do something today. I'm going to take you." It was going to a certain park, which was beautiful, and you would go out for dinner. And when we went to this place, which actually was closed, but they got into the actual park, but you're able to kind of go around it and still see it. So that's what we did, into this area, which reminded me kind of Wabaca, the way that the trees were and everything. Like, this is in the middle of West Texas, but it was beautiful. I realized something. I said to Father, "Father, you know that I have not left the city limits of Lubbock in over a year. I've not the city limits." And there were times that I didn't even leave the property for like weeks. Well,
So,
no,
so you
no,
weren't
no,
the one
no, never
picking up
mind.
Father from
No,
the airport?
I
Okay.
did, because that was then going to the
Okay.
airport, pick him up, or that was all I did.
Right.
If I went
Okay.
shopping, it was with Father. If I I started to take myself to like doctor's appointments, but that day was nice for me because Father Joseph and I got to sit and talk, and and that's when he actually started telling me about the work you all started doing with the girls with the dresses and stuff,
Oh,
making the dresses and different shelters and stuff for women. And that's when I first heard about it. So you got to kind of like, oh, you're excited, this idea, but I got to stay patient and keep my nose to the books and do what I have to do. I've said to Father Joseph more than once, I said, "Father, can I come back?" And he's like, "I'd love to have you back, Father, but you got stuff to do." And it's not
yeah.
that you hate what you're doing, but there's just something about that sequestered life,
Mm-hmm.
that you're away from the world, and you get to you follow the schedule, these basic duties you have to do, and that's it. No
Yep.
real big responsibility, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just really a lot of time you and God.
Yep.
That I enjoyed. Uh, but so I'm just, well, that just reminds you that when you're in this world, you're by yourself as a religious. You have to put an extra effort to be united with God in everything you do.
Yep. And
So,
I think that
so
is.
in all that, there's joys and sorrows.
Mm-hmm. But that's
I,
with anything in the world. So.
I've had some of my greatest frustrations as a priest, some of my greatest aggravations as a priest, but also my greatest consolations as a priest. And
Mm-hmm.
there's no greater consolation than being able to say mass, to be able to chant a high mass,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to take part in the entire liturgy, especially Holy Week, in this way. It just, this is what I love. Writing. You talked about that. It's something I never thought I'd really do, get into writing, and I actually find I enjoy writing. So,
Excellent.
kind of ruined my final thought being a kind of a profound
Oh,
one, but
that's quite all right. Well, I think this was very enlightening. I mean, I'm pretty sure I knew most of it, but
anything you
uh,
didn't know?
I don't think so, to be honest with you. Um, no, I think I don't think there was
I
really
think
any.
we've talked about a lot of this, and
Well, right. This,
you played.
but to put it like a formal setting where someone can listen to this episode and gain some insight. Hopefully, it'll be helpful, informational.
It's every the spiritual life, the soul's ascent towards God is an adventure. He's going to call you to a vocation. You have to be willing to listen to the call, to whatever
Mhm.
that vocation may be. The religious life or a priestly life, because they go really hand in hand in many ways, can seem daunting because it's new. But if you put your faith in God and you're willing to get out of a comfort zone and try, you may find joys you've never experienced before and consolations you've never had. And those consolations really are what help you bear the sorrows that come from a life. Why are you shaking your head on me?
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It's like you look like I was afraid I said constellation.
I actually am not sure. I really kind of was zoning out, to be honest.
Constellation. Oh, fair enough. Fair
Um,
enough. Well, we've been talking for a while, but
yes.
it's just be willing to be flexible for God. Be willing to seek his will and ask him, pray to know it, and then have the grace to fulfill it. I'll tell you, this is the greatest adventure the soul can be on, and I enjoy the adventure. I'm looking forward to the future projects that we have in line, we have in store, the bishop wants us to do. Now it's serious. When the bishop wants you to do it, it's serious.
Yes.
And and old prospects, and there's so much more I guess I could talk about, but
right.
this is
I know I'm feeling like the Deo Gratias vibe is coming up close.
They're thinking it's just it just you could I could come back almost every 4 or 5 years with probably something a little different, because you either, just like anyone, you either grow in the religious life or you decline, you recede. It's up to you whether or not you will grow. And I pray that this could be an aid to anybody. And I'm glad you asked me to do this, sister. I'm pretty sure I wasn't going to say no.
Well, I'm pretty sure you didn't really have a choice.
That's true. That's true. But I will say on my end, thank you.
You're welcome. And I just wanted to say thank you for answering God's call to be a priest. I don't think we say that often enough to our priests. So I'm going to put it out there to our listeners that don't hesitate to once in a while just really thank your priest, whether it's by a card, remembering their anniversary, remembering their feast day, because it's without our priests, we would truly be in a lot of trouble, hurt. So
that's true.
May God be praised for all of you, and I will say Deo Gratias.
Oh, Deo Gratias.